Okay, so who's sharing the screen? Is it
Me. That's
you?
me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to unpause now. We are live already.
Okay, we're recording. Okay. Okay, John, I guess you're ready.
Okay, got it. Okay, good morning, everyone. I call the June Guam Board of Accountancy meeting to order. Before we begin, we just will reconfirm that the meeting has been properly noticed. And, I see from our materials, the meeting was noticed on June 13 and June 18 in the Daily Post. So I think that's good. What's the requirement, Dave? Sorry, it's
I think it's 10 days and 4 days or something like that. 7
10
days
days.
and 3 days.
7 days and 3 days, because it was the latest is 18th of June, so that's just
Yeah.
2 days ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm not sure. It's 2 times before the meeting. So.
Okay, so it was properly noticed 2 times before the meeting.
I depend on Arlene to get the dates right.
Okay.
Never let us down yet.
Okay, good. First item on the agenda then will be the present for the meeting is our board members, Sean Phillips, Taling Taitano, Jenny Chu, and myself, and then of course Executive Director Dave Sanford. Then the first item will be the approval of last month's meeting minutes, which was held on May 23rd, and it's in our materials. I looked at it. I didn't see anything.
Move to approve subject to correction.
Okay, motion by Talling. Can I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, minutes approved. Thanks, Sean. Then the next item, Dave, would be, you want to talk about the endowment fund update?
Right. It's just a Guam Accountancy Endowment Fund. Yeah, we're up to a little over 5 million as of June 18. The balance at the end of May was 5,020,000, and we seem to have accumulated another 62,000, I guess, in the last couple of weeks or so. So we moved up to the 114, or about 100,000, I guess. But, still subject to the vagaries of the market going up and down. But I think if we look at the 5 million, basically we're doing well there. And the year-to-date return so far for this year has been 4.25%. So not bad considering how many ups and downs we've seen so far this year.
So looking at that asset allocation, it looks like most of it is in U.S. equities, or half.
Right. Yeah. So, and we're still, if we go back to the analysis here, we're still for the first half, basically we've paid almost 25,000 in fees, but we've realized 38,800 in long-term gain. We still don't have any realized losses, so
Okay.
Presumably just results from the fact that we're not forced to liquidate anything at this point. So
yeah. Dave, do you know offhand what's the total amount that we've contributed? I think it's probably in our files. I mean, our financials somewhere.
I had it, and then we made another one. I think it's probably somewhere around 3.5, 4 million.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I'm thinking. 3.5 million.
Yeah, okay. I'll summarize it. I'll summarize our contributions for the next meeting.
Okay. I mean, that's
basically all I have for this one. I haven't had any feedback in terms of the visiting professor program. I guess it's summertime now, so yes, Dr. Conrad. I'm not sure he's teaching summer courses.
Oh yeah. I don't know. When we're doing Well, I don't know if he's plans on taking vacation or leave. Yeah, okay.
Right. I don't recall him being committed to teaching summer courses, but I know he's teaching fall courses. So,
But Dave, I guess this EOG, are they bringing in or using the was it Billy Moorhead for the
they're
summers?
using. I don't think for the summer. I think they're using him for part of the master's program. He's teaching online for the master's program, so he's not actually coming to
Okay.
Guam. I don't think he's coming to Guam, but I think he's teaching part of the online masters during the summer.
Which is the
Yeah.
cohort ends, I think, November, or is it
I believe November, yeah.
November? Okay.
So, but I know he's teaching at least one or two of the Mac courses for the summer.
Okay. Okay. Good.
but that's completely online, so we don't have any travel cost or anything like that. So.
Mhm.
Otherwise, has the advisory committee ever had an actual meeting?
No, not yet. So
Still,
no, not since I'm trying to remember the last time. I may have been on off island, but I don't recall the latest.
I think there were. You said there was one, but I think you were off island when they had this.
But regarding that, I think Tolling mentioned about the exam or the test. What do you call it? The accounting test. And I think we do. I think in general want the tests removed. That
Yeah, we
entrance
want to
test.
change. We want to change that process from the test to the review course.
Yeah. So I mean, so there was a report that we did for that group, but I think the bottom line is we need to have, or the university or the college, the School of Business needs to have at least 3 professors in accounting,
Right.
To break the stalemate, right?
Right. Yeah. And that kind of remains to be seen if Dr. Conrad decides to stay and become a permanent staff or remain visiting.
Yeah, because I do believe that affects.
Out.
I do believe that affects our pipeline to a certain extent, and
I'm pretty sure it does. I don't know why we turn people away when we don't have enough in the first place. So. But
okay,
that's something we need to tackle with the dean. Okay. You want to move on to the
yes, let's move on to the applications
new
for
licensee.
New licenses. Right. Yes.
We have I think 48. There's 2 new individual licensees from Guam and then 1 new firm license. So we have
Ed Mill. Okay.
Ed Mill. I think everybody's probably familiar with that.
He just started at Ambrose. Okay. Name.
Yeah. Yep. And then we also have
it was James Clock.
yeah, he's the firm, but we have Nelly.
Oh, Nelia. Yeah.
Nelly is with
it's initial. I
GRMC.
thought she was licensed a long time ago. I guess not. Okay.
I guess not. Yeah, but she got her MBA at the University of Guam, so I guess she finally just applied. She's been with GRMC since 2018, so she's not a test license. And then James Kwok is applying for his initial firm license.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
that's 1 new firm permit. So
is he doing? Do you know if he's going to do any assurance services?
I don't know yet.
Tell him to encourage him to do it so we can have.
I would imagine so. I mean, well, we'll see. He's been around a while, but
yeah. So for those of you on the board that don't know James Kwok, he used to work with us here at EY as an audit senior manager. Then he left, I think, probably during the pandemic to start his own business. And prior to joining us, he came from I think we hired him from KPMG Korea. Oh, no, sorry,
Right.
not KPMG. He was private industry, but he worked with KPMG there, and also I think in the US too as well. So
Mhm.
so he
I
has the
think
audit background.
if I remember, well, can't be sure, but I think there was one instance where he was asking about doing an audit and was applying for to get on the list for for the review. Because I had to put him in touch with the Oregon people to get in touch for a peer review. So
Okay.
I presume he's planning to do some
Okay. I mean,
audit,
hopefully he can do
test
some.
services, right?
Mhm.
So we have 47 new licensees. A couple of reinstatements, though, not all new. 2, 3.
Oh, I forgot to mention that James Kwok also teaches auditing at the university. I think he's an adjunct as well.
Right,
Oh.
right. I think he worked with Ray a good bit when Ray Johnson was here.
Okay.
I think I remember Ray saying. So we have 4 reinstatements.
That's good.
Move to approve?
Can I hear a second?
Second. I
Thank you.
second.
Okay, so the applications for new licenses have been approved.
So
The next
we
item.
can move on to general discussion.
Okay.
First thing I have is the NASMA Board of Accountancy, National Association State Board of Accountancy. Their board of directors meeting in April in Las Vegas was where they unanimously approved Dan Dustin to become the new president and chief executive officer of NASMA.
Okay.
And Dan takes over August the 1st. I think Ken's contract is runs out on July 31st. So I don't know if most everybody may have met Dan. Sean, I don't think you've been to a meeting yet. So, but he's been around quite a while. He was formerly the New York State Board of Accounts executive director for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years before he joined NASMA. And he's been with NASMA for at least, I don't know, 5 or 6, maybe even 10 years. So it's been quite a while. So Dan's a pretty good guy. I think he'll make a pretty good leader there. And then, sorry, the only other interesting thing here was that they're talking about possible amendments to the NASMA bylaws, which they're always talking about some, and mostly it's just cleanup kind of stuff. Then we go to the January board meeting they had. And Ken talked about how the financial results were better than expected in the fall of 23 with the increased volume, although they're anticipating the decrease in the candidate volume for calendar 24. It's kind of interesting because I was at the AICPA council meeting and Mike Decker was telling me that they've already had enough volume to validate the scoring from a psychometrics standpoint. So we're really not sure there's going to be as much of a drop off as we thought there might be due to the score delays. So the scores are going to come out a little faster than everybody had anticipated. So we'll see. But at this point, we're not really experiencing the drop off that I thought we would. I guess it's just because of the volume, and I'm not sure why the volume is maintaining itself from an applicant's point of view, but it is.
That's interesting, Dave. I mean, I'm trying to understand this increased candidate volume. Is it due to timing, or is there an actual increase in students or graduates? So
well, that's the interesting thing, because the big push at the end of 23 was due to the people trying to get in the BEC and get done with the old exam before it changed. But now we're in May, and I've seen our applicants from January through April are holding steady. There's no real decrease there. Actually, there's a little bit of an increase. So I would have thought that by March or April, you'd see a little drop off because the score delays, they were supposed to hold the scores until maybe if you took in January, you don't get your score till April. But apparently, they're either taking other sections or whatever, but there's no real drop off in terms of applicants and applicant revenues that I thought that we would see. Not at this point, anyway. It may come a little later, but so far it's not showing like we thought it would.
Okay.
And apparently, it's also not showing to NASBA or the ACPA either. They thought there would be more of a drop off than there is. The other thing is that Colleen talked about her PCAOB Standard Emerging Issues Advisory Group, and Rich Reisig, who was former NASBA chair, is on the Financial Accounting Foundation board and has a good relationship. So we have NASBA has a little bit of input there. And then they also had meetings with the FASB and GASB, and they had this also a meeting with the Accountants Coalition to, of course, discuss the pipeline issues. And then Colleen's also attended meetings with worldwide audit regulators where they focus remains on audit quality and the pipeline issue. And they're saying the pipeline issue is global in nature, which I think we all know by now. So then they had an update on the status of mutual recognition agreements, and these two Irish regulatory groups that they used to have separately are seeking to merge. So maybe they're having pipeline issues also. And apparently, from NASBA's perspective, they completed their tech initiatives in terms of the new system and the CPACE and gateway system. So it appears to be working okay. And they're beginning to pilot the use of artificial intelligence to enhance their services. And I'm not sure what they mean by artificial intelligence. A lot of people say that, but it really means, robotic automation of processes more than AI, but we don't know at this point. And then they had updates on the pipeline initiatives for the credit relief, which is really the amnesty thing. And this experience learn and earn program. I'm gonna talk about that a little later. But Ken Bishop said they had an update on discussions about future licensure models and providing equivalent pathways, etc. The same thing they've been talking about for a while. And the biggest issue that everybody keeps talking about is how do we do that without disrupting mobility or substantial equivalency? And there's been a lot of discussion about that. And then the impact of the transition to the new exam on candidate volume and pass rates. The final months were huge volume, of course, but the pass rates decreased, of course. And then they're also reported on the status of individual boards adopting the revised conditional credit rules, which is going to the 30 months. So most of them have done that. We're in the process of doing that. Dan did an update also with this Alliance for ARPL, the Responsible Professional Licensure. They put out that graphic we looked at last month. CPT is doing well, I guess, and they have changes being made in the student professional programming where they're making new programs for ethics that they're using. Some states are using for training, ethics training, and for disciplinary purposes when they have people with ethics issues. Pat Harton was the director of client services, and she basically runs most of the day-to-day stuff at NASMA. She's the go-to person if you need to know anything or have an issue with anything. And she says that the national candidate database has been updated. It was interesting that they had almost 6,500 emails were sent on behalf of the boards of accountancies boards to candidates who are able to participate in the credit relief initiative. That's the amnesty program, which we did not participate in on a wholesale basis. So they're saying between 25 and 30% of the those eligible to participate actually submitted necessary paperwork to participate. So that's like 30% out of the 6,500, which would be what, 1,900, so maybe 2,000 people. And then they discussed the exam volume and the impact on staff overtime hours. But this credit relief thing, which was the amnesty program, they had 2,000 people, but they don't have any idea where in the process any of those people stood. So they could have one part and still need 3 more parts, or they could have had 3 parts and need 1 part, but only 30% of the eligible people actually participated. I think we were a lot better off by doing what we've done, which is work with anybody who actually contacted us to you know, wanting relief or any participation in that sense. So sorry.
Dave,
yeah.
sorry, just a question, because I know there was that's the credit relief, but there's also the what is it, the 30-month window?
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't formally, of course, adjusted our rules yet or revised our rules.
No, but we've essentially been honoring the 30-month rules. The 30
we have been, okay.
Extension. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to confirm, what to tell, let's say, the graduates from UOG, for example, or others that don't have the 150 hours, that let's say right now they just have whatever it is with under the accounting program, they're an UOG now. I can tell them that they can take the exam now, even though they don't have the 150 hours, but they need to get the 150 hours within 30 months from the first test. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I mean, that's our current policy now.
Right. The board's approved the policy. I'm just in the process of writing it into the rules. So.
Okay. I mean, I should say that now, depending on what any changes, because, looking at what's going on with the other states changing it, trying to change it back to only like it was the way it was before. What is it? You need 1 year of experience, or sorry, 2 years of experience and 120 hours. Or if you have a master's degree, they only need 1 year or something like that, right? So, but for now, we just tell them that's 30 months. They can still take the exam, just need 30 months to get the full 150. As of today, that's our policy. Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think even, I'm not sure if it's Michigan or Minnesota, but even the state that actually introduced a bill to change the required hours from 150 back to 120 or baccalaureate or whatever. I think they introduced a bill, but I don't think anything's actually passed. And I think it's supposed to be discussed in their next legislative session, something to that effect.
Okay.
I think Doreen was telling us about that, the executive director. And they said that the people sponsoring the legislation said they're open to discussion. They don't want to do anything that's going to prevent their CPAs from working out of state. So they're open to discussion, but they're just saying something has to be done. So, and there are a lot of people that feel that way. So,
okay. Because, as we interview many of the UOG graduates coming out of the accounting program, there are many that don't have the 150 hours. So
right. And there's a lot of issues back and forth with that. A lot of the data we've seen with executive directors. So we'll talk about that with the impact report in a few minutes.
Hey, Dave, just
But,
to clarify, the clock starts running when the first set of exam scores are released, right? Not when the exam is taken?
Well, what we've always done with the with the credit expiration, you're correct. If you sit for the exam and you don't get your score until 6 weeks or 3 months later, the credit will not expire. The credit expiration date is based on when the score is actually released.
Okay,
Yes.
release score.
Right.
Yes. But what we've done with the pre-education completion program is that if you sit for the exam before you complete your education, you've got it used to be 18 months, now it's the 30 months from the time you first sit for the exam
Okay,
to actually complete your education. And so there's two distinct things. One is
got it.
the credit expiration date would be from the score release date, but the education completion date was typically we based it on the day you
Yes.
first sit for the exams.
Okay.
Okay. So apparently Frances has to be excused, so she's got another commitment she needs to attend to.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah. Okay. The finance committee, they said that the end of 23 candidate volume for the mad rush for the final old exam affected their financial results. So their revenue was better than budget by 2.7 million. So NASMA's actually done pretty well for calendar year 2023. And they anticipated the exam volume would remain lower during the first part of calendar 24. And that's the same as we did, but I haven't seen that, and I don't think they're seeing it either. So, but their expenses were $500,000 less than budget through the first 4 months. And their professional services and technology expenses were the primary captions, meaning that they've basically completed all of the issues they had in terms of getting ready for the new exam with their IT changes and stuff like that. So NASMA's actually done pretty good for the calendar year 2023. Now the update on the proposed amendments to the model rules 7, 4, and 5 about peer review we talked about before. The committee recommended that they approve it, so the actual board actually approved the amendments to the UAA model rules relative to the peer review. So we're going to see revised rules come out in the near future. And then this is the bylaw amendment they're talking about is concerning the withdrawal of a nominee before election. So if somebody's nominated, but then they withdraw before they're elected at the annual meeting, how are they going to handle replacing them, et cetera, especially relative to the virtual meetings. So, and then again, the AICPA and the NPAG, which is the National Pipeline group. And there's the big issue there is the proposals that threaten substantial equivalency and mobility. So we'll get into that in a minute, some of the concepts there. Then there was some groups discussing changes to the licensure model. Is the NASMA has a professional licensure task force. AICPA has the National Pipeline Advisory Group, and there's a substantial equivalency work group, and then there's staff with both. The key difference between the groups is whether experiential learning earned has to be on an accredited transcript. And that's part of the issue we'll discuss in a minute. So And then I guess it's this Minnesota and South Carolina have introduced or discussing legislation to change the education back to the 120 and include alternate pathways. So that's the two that we're discussing.
Yeah.
And Oregon also, and but Oregon, I know Martin wants to stay with whatever is substantially equivalent, or allows them mobility also. So he's working on that.
Mhm.
But he's got some issues with it, and
Dave,
yes.
NASBA and AICPA's position is that they don't want to reduce or change the 150. Is that correct?
That
They want to stick with it.
seems to be correct. Yes, as far as I can determine at this point.
So I'm just trying to understand what their strategy is, with these other states that are trying to.
Well, the interesting thing, and we'll get to with this impact thing in a minute, is that AICPA has an ultimate goal of going strictly to competency. So that's going to be an issue too. So
Oh, wow, strictly to competency.
That's part of what's going with these licensure models of various groups. Experience earned through a structured program, structured professional program. Does it need to be on a transcript, etc.? Anyway, just so we know, the CPT is now up to 54 student chapters with about at 5,600 participants in their ethical leadership program. So they're growing, and they keep growing, which is a good thing. So that's basically all of the board update stuff. So this is the NPAG, which is the National Pipeline Advisory Group for the AICPA. I got this from attending the AICPA council meeting in the spring in Orlando. And this is just to give you the rundown on what the NPAG report is. They basically analyzed the research, collected insight from just under 10,000 stakeholders and participants, including 2,000 accounting and business students. So they've issued this executive summary, which is what I've included here. The full report is like 85 pages or 92 pages, something like that. Still a lot of details. Anyway, the report explores pipeline data, root causes of the profession's attrition, and proposed solutions. And they came up with 6 key data-driven themes.
Okay.
And they plan to finalize this report by July. And I think what's going to happen, John, is that we'll see this presented at the regional meeting in Omaha. They did the AICPA. I think Sue presented this at the Eastern Regional meeting back in the first week of June. And then it's been out since then, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be presented the same way at the Western Region meeting. So this is the draft of the executive summary. So the bottom line here is that they have a council resolution to preserve mobility, and we all know what that means. But the full survey results and NPAG's final report will be released in July. This draft is only a partial interim findings from the surveys. And the highlights are they did an analysis of the changing labor market and education landscape. They're looking at the root causes of the pipeline shortage, and then they're recommending strategies and tactics and talk about other efforts. The real detail here is that the themes they came up with is in order to overall increase the pipeline, we need to tell a better story. We need to make the academic experience more engaging. Yeah, right. Well, most of this is a lot of fluff as far as I'm concerned. Address the time and cost of education, grow support for exam candidates, coddle them a little more, maybe, I don't know. Expand access, and this is the DEI part. and then enhance the employee experience, which is meaning pay them more and give them less work, you know. So,
Yeah,
so,
I had an
uh,
employee, he's telling me that the cost to take the CPA exam has increased. And he's basically saying that our bonus for passing is not enough.
yeah, well, there's a lot of people who feel that way. But you know, the maybe the litmus test for that would be what kind of bonus or salary increase do the foreign candidates get, because they spend a lot more money taking the exam, you know.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just as a measuring stick. But so that's the NPAG's initial recommendation are based on those 6 major themes. And then they go through a lot of detail about blah, blah, blah. But the big one for me is address the time and cost of education. And that's part of this structured professional program, is to say, well, the firm can decide what it wants to do and just have an education for its employees. And we should count that as education for qualifying for the license. So their concept is the experiential learning that earns college credit on the student's transcript delivered by accredited college or university. And that's part of that structured program thing. And some of that's happening, but has to go on the transcript. The near-term model is experiential learning off the transcript delivered by the employer or another third party. And that's the actual structured professional program. The experiential learning here is the ELE, experience, learn, and earn thing. This is the structured program where the employer just puts it together and it doesn't have to be on a transcript. The third concept is a longer term. Create a competency-based licensure model that's neither based on university credit hours nor experience time. It just should measure the mastery and readiness instead of time in school or time on the job. Now,
That's interesting.
this is the ultimate goal of the ICPA, which means do away with the hours and do away with experience and just let everybody decide that these guys, if you can do this, you're qualified, and give them a license.
It's got to be a base.
There's a lot of resistance for this, especially among all the executive directors. We had a call the other day, and there were like 40-something executive directors on the call, and a lot of them are very opposed to this competency-based thing. The thing that I find interesting is that we have always rejected the ACCA approach to licensing people, and to this day, ACCA exists in 120 something countries, but it only has audit rights in the UK, and they kind of got that by you know, I'm not sure exactly how I should say influence or whatever, but that's the only place they have any audit rights. And the reason we've always rejected the ACCA certificates as qualifying as part of the education for the US CPA exam is because there was no structured educational program per se, and in that you could take classes and write these papers, and essentially they give tests, but there's no structure in terms of monitoring the tests or whether you actually had to attend a class or take the test. You could just take a test and basically I guess like in some of the initial college courses, when you're a freshman, you can test out of a course, so you don't have to take it. You just take a test, and if you pass it, okay, you don't have to take the class. So that's the way the ACCA has always worked, and because of that, we've always rejected that. So this competency thing where we don't care if you get credit hours at a university, we don't care if you spend time on the job, we just want you to show us that you're capable. So how you're going to do that, who's going to measure that, you know, what are the parameters for determining that. And when you couple that goal with this near term off the transcript stuff, meaning the employer can just create some courses and give it to his employees and say that qualifies you. You have no control over any consistency or any quality in that sense. And you know as well as I do, you know, all the things that are going to crop up if you allow something like that to happen, where you're ever going to have any consistency or any quality control. I mean, so I know there's a lot of resistance to this among the actual the executive directors who actually do the work of trying to make sure people qualify to sit through the exam and that kind of thing. So
Interesting. It's interesting.
I don't know where this push is really coming from or why it's going there, but I mean, I've heard about competency models before, but I don't know if that's, I mean, I don't know how the board feels about it, but I just know that a lot of the executive directors have a lot of issues with it.
I'm just curious. So maybe licensees don't have to do 40 hours of CPE. They just take the test, see if they pass the course. And I mean, in theory, that's possible, right?
Yeah. Well, that's basically what they're saying. You don't need CPE. You know, I mean, who's to say if you've proved that you're competent in terms of competent enough to be a CPA, then why would you ever have to do anything else? But who's going to develop the measure of mastery and readiness? And that's the thing that's just going to hang out there, because without some parameter in terms of what constitutes a measure of mastery and readiness, who's going to do that, and how are you going to do it? I mean, if I'm an employer and I got 6 or 7 people working for me and I need them to get licensed, how hard is it for me to create a quote structured professional program that I determine is substantial enough to prove their mastery and give them a license? Who's going to audit me? Who's going to determine whether it really is or not? You know, I don't know. I mean, that's just, I mean, this is a draft, so you know, it is, as Sue says, quote unquote, subject to change. But you know as well as I do, when they get focused on something, they tend to want to go all the way. They don't bring it up unless they want to approve it. So I don't know where it's going to go, but I just wanted everybody to be aware that this is what their long-term goal seems to be at this point.
Okay.
And I don't know where we would go from here. The overriding concern that I had, that I voiced in the executive director meeting, was number one, about the consistency and the quality control, and having for all these years denied the ACCA concept. This is basically exactly what it is. So I don't see how you can now say, oh, this is okay, when for how many years we've denied accepting it. You know? And the other thing is my overriding concern for our CPAs in Guam is that we do whatever we need to do within reason to remain substantially equivalent, so our CPA, our licensees, can practice in the states under mobility. So,
Dave, who is the ACCA? What does that stand for?
I'd have to look it up again. I've forgotten. It's Association of Chartered something or another. I can't remember. I'll look it up, Sean. And but
okay, they're the ones that are sort of pushing this competency-based licensure model.
Well, the ACCA has been in existence for a long time, and I first found out about it when I started as executive director in 2004.
Yeah,
And I would get requests from candidates to say, you know, I passed this ACCA paper, can it qualify as my education? And I went and asked NASBA and I asked the evaluators, you know, and they all said, no, we don't accept that because there's no control over who gives it and when, and how they take it, and, you know, all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
So, but these people were, the candidates were saying, well, I took this test, essentially they call it writing the paper, but I took this test and that proves that I know this, so I don't have to take the course. So can I get credit for the course? We said
yeah.
no, you know, so. But that's since 2004. So after 20 years of saying no, what are we going to just now change to the same model? You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that, from my perspective, that's kind of what the issue is. So, but again, I don't know where it's going to go. But my overriding concern is how we remain substantially equivalent so we can actually practice in mobility, and our licensees can go to the states and practice. You know, because the issues that they're talking about mobility is if, say, for instance, Michigan passes the law and goes back to the 120 and they start licensing people with 120 hours, essentially a bachelor's degree, and 2 years experience, then if those people want to go work in another state that requires 150 hours, are they going to accept them as substantially equivalent or
Yeah,
not?
you don't have the uniformity. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's part of the bigger issue. And then is it all going to go to hell in a handbasket? Are we back where we started 15 years ago, or what? Yeah. So that's the bigger issue. So anyway, I really just want to be sure that everybody's aware of it, because that's what the bigger argument is today. And you're supposed to enhance the employee experience by making workloads more manageable, work more interesting, and advancement opportunities and rewards clearer. So again, a little more fluff there. And it all sounds great, but I attended this webinar that the California people had, California Board of Accountancy had, because they're debating what to do about some of this stuff too, and they're putting forth some suggestions about how to maybe improve the licensure model so that it's not so tedious, and what they kind of are suggesting is that let's do away with the how many hours you need. Do you need 120? You need 150? Let's just say that if you have a baccalaureate degree, and then you get 2 years experience, then you would be equivalent to somebody with a master's degree and 1 year experience, and just basically nominate the degree itself. So if you have that degree, we don't have to go look at your transcripts. If you have an accounting degree, then we don't look at your actual coursework. Now, if you have a degree that's other than an accounting degree, then we can look and see that you've got accounting courses and business courses. But they're trying to eliminate some of the more tedious work, like looking at every course on a transcript, but still requiring that you actually have a degree from some institution of higher learning, you know, relative to, and coursework relative to accounting. So that's kind of where they're coming from, and you know, whether you go 1 year, 2 years experience. The other point that I made in the executive director meeting is I thought that we enacted the 1,000 hours of a test experience because we didn't want people going out to do audits who'd never even done any test work. I think that the experience requirement should go back to being public accounting experience, you know. So if you require them to have a bachelor's degree in public accounting experience, then at least you know that they're relatively indoctrinated in the requirement of the profession versus any other experience you want to have. So, you know, but I don't know where it's going to land. I mean, everybody's kind of all over the place at this point. A lot of the executive directors are very against the competency thing. But their boards are having discussions about 120 versus 150, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Dave, one thought in this is that it's sort of scary that, I mean, we're going through all this to increase the pipeline. I mean, it's not because of quality, right?
right.
We're doing some things that may affect quality. So, I mean, that's something that they should consider. Hopefully they're considering.
That's one of the issues that most of us brought up. I mean, and the other side of that coin is we're supposed to be doing all this to increase the pipeline, but the fact is the pipeline is smaller because the pool is smaller. You know, when the pool shrinks, of course the pipeline is going to shrink, and it's apparently shrunk on a global basis. So, I don't see that 99% of what they're talking about doing is not going to have any effect within the next 3 to 5 years anyway, frankly speaking. So I think that some of what they're considering is just kind of off the wall stuff.
Okay.
You know, so everybody getting on the bandwagon for, you know, what it's worth, I guess. I don't know. But you're right. I don't think a lot of it makes sense, especially from a quality standpoint. The only real argument to me has been the age-old argument between the 120 and 150, or essentially between the bachelor's and master's degree, because there's no evidence anywhere that shows that the people with a master's degree are any better CPAs than the people with bachelor's degrees. And one of the executive directors made the comment that, well, you know, the people with the master's degrees do better on the exam, more of a pass, et cetera, et cetera. And I made the point that, well, actually, only 20% or 25% of all candidates have an advanced degree. And when you look at it, the top 40, excuse me, if you look at the top 40 CPAs that the AICPA recognized with their award, right? Out of 80 something thousand, 84, 85,000 candidates, there's the top 40 candidates out of all those 80 something thousand. 25% of them had bachelor's degrees. Only 75% had master's, but 25% of them had bachelor's degrees only. So I don't think that the you know, bachelor's versus master's thing is that much of a issue in terms of trying to prove that more education makes you a better CPA in terms of performance in the field or protecting the public. There's no evidence that more CPAs with bachelor's degrees get in trouble than the CPAs with master's degrees. So, you know, there's just no evidence of it. So, I think that's one of the bigger issues. And somebody raised the question, which I thought was pretty poignant. The question was, well, how many jurisdictions actually changed their rules to the 150 hours because they thought it would increase the quality, or because they had to, because they wanted to remain substantially equivalent?
Because they wanted to, but they had to.
And I couldn't find any jurisdiction that would own up to the fact that they did it, other than to remain substantially equivalent, just like we did. I mean, California is the same way. We were like next to the last, and California was we didn't do it until California did. They did it right before us. And they had 5 different pathways before. So I don't know where it's going to go, but anyway,
Okay. Well,
that's the big argument at present, and we should hear more about it at the regional meeting.
good.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. What's the next that you have here are financials.
Financials, I've estimated May because I don't have the actual applicant numbers, but I estimated it. I think it's reasonably close. But it's all based on linear projection of the last 5 months, yeah, from October to April. So we're holding our own, and I know that the licensing fees are going to be good because I've been getting at least 10 or 15 a day coming through my email. So I know we got a lot more. So I don't think there's an issue with individual licensing fees. We'll definitely exceed our revenue budget, probably by about 150,000. And expenses are on track. So I'm pretty sure we're going to wind up the year with at least 150,000 in excess. Overall, I don't see any issues with what we have going at this point. And we should be able to make at least a $200,000 contribution to the endowment fund. Another 200,000 if we wanted to.
Okay.
Okay. Unless anybody has any questions.
No, I mean,
Mostly boring, but
Have we heard anything about our budget, when the budget might be approved?
no, ma'am.
By 25?
No, ma'am. We never hear. Even though sometimes we call, we still don't hear much until we just hear that they passed the budget bill and we go look, and typically we find out what they put in there. We're never actually called. When I saw Joe S. Right before, about a week or so before I left Guam in March, and I asked him about the budget, and he said, "Don't worry about it." That's all he said. I told him I was rewriting the rules, and I want to introduce that as a bill versus the AAA process or whatever. So yeah, and he said, "Yeah, just let him know whenever we're ready." So, but yeah, they typically treat it, I think, the same way they treat most of the special revenue funds, the smaller ones like us. They just kind of throw in there whatever they look at what we give them and throw whatever they want to in there. But they haven't called us for a hearing in 4 or 5 years now. So. Anybody got any other questions?
no questions from me, Dave. Oh, just one last one. So what interest rate are we getting on the TCD? Or sorry, looks like we're not getting any interest on the bank.
We don't have any TCDs at this point. I was thinking about making it tomorrow, but I don't know if it's better to do that or put it in the endowment. We're making 4.25 in the endowment. We make a little bit off of the checking account, so but it's still minimal. That's what I was thinking about, maybe trying to see what we can get in some more TCDs, but I don't know if that's better than the return on the endowment fund was better, but now I'm not sure at this point. But the only other thing I have is that it looks like I'm going to be in the States for a few more weeks, probably to the middle of July or the end of July. Well, for one thing, we've basically been doing some, the medical executive checkup stuff, and they want us to do some more tests for Tony. So we'll be here probably another couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks at least, probably through the middle of July because the guy they want to do the test is on paternity leave because his wife just had a baby, so he won't be back until the second week of July, and has to get done after that. But otherwise, we'll continue to have a Zoom meeting if that's okay.
Okay. Dave, you're attending the regional meeting?
Yes, I'll be there in Omaha.
Tolling, are you going? Did you?
I'm not gonna go to the regional meeting, but I was hoping to go to the annual meeting.
Oh, okay.
Annual meeting is in Orlando. It's the last week of October in Orlando.
Yeah, I'm also hoping to attend that too, if possible.
Okay, sure. I could put in as soon as it's October, so I think they'll probably put it out in August. I think they put out the emails for July or August, so then we can request scholarships for you guys. I
Yeah,
don't
from
think
what
that's
I
an issue.
read, they allow like one scholarship per jurisdiction. Does that apply to Guam, or does Guam?
No, we have a special dispensation.
Okay, good.
So and so
I think we had at one time one annual meeting. We probably had 3 or 4. I think I could be wrong.
we've had 3 at least. I mean,
At least 3, right? Okay.
Yeah, mine's covered under my contract, so it's not part of it. So, but we pay enough dues to cover at least 3 people at the annual meeting. So, I don't think that's an issue. Yeah, we should all plan on doing that. It'll be somewhere in Orlando. I'm not sure where. I think this year, Orlando must have given the convention people a heads up on discounts because every meeting I've had this year so far has been in Orlando, except for the regional meeting in Omaha. At the AICPA council meeting, have the NASBA meetings. I've actually had 2 AICPA meetings, and then we also had the UKG meeting that I attended as part of our business. It was in Orlando also. So I have every meeting I've had has been in Orlando. But the AICPA council meeting is the week before the annual NASBA annual meeting. It's in Atlanta, so it's all on the southeast this year, I guess. But yeah, that's not a problem. We can do scholarships for that. Okay.
Okay.
That's all I have.
I don't think I have anything else either. Floor is open. If
Move to
there's
adjourn?
Move to adjourn. Okay,
Okay.
good. Second.
A
Do I hear
second.
Second by Jenny.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, meeting
Okay.
adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Okay,
You too.
I'm gonna go eat